Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating story about gaining respect at work. But here's the twist. It's not about getting a promotion or a new title. Nope. It's about a transformation that happens entirely on the inside.
So let's start with a feeling that I'm willing to bet many of us know all too well. You know the one, you're putting in the hours, you're doing the work, but it just feels like you're invisible. Like your contributions aren't really being seen or valued by your team.
Well, this is a story about how one person completely flipped that script. He went from being totally overlooked to becoming absolutely indispensable. And his method? Well, it's a powerful blueprint that, honestly, any of us can learn from.
So, to really get this transformation, we've got to meet the man at the center of it all, a guy named Kun Gang, and see exactly where his journey began.
So, who was this Kun Gang? Well, you probably know someone just like him. He was that quiet person you find in almost every office. The one who rarely spoke up in meetings, who tended to make these small but kind of consistent mistakes. And whenever a conversation got difficult or conflict was brewing, his go-to move was just to retreat. And that just made things worse, right? It only deepened the misunderstandings and made him feel even more like an outsider looking in.
Living like this was really starting to weigh on him. He got to a point where he just knew something had to give. And he had this huge realization. Nobody else was going to fix this for him. The change had to come from within. His goal wasn't to become the loudest person in the room or some kind of corporate superstar. It was actually way simpler and way more profound. He just wanted to be a trustworthy, reliable, and effective part of his team. So he decided to stop chasing approval from others and instead focus on building his own inner value, trusting that real respect would follow.
Okay, so how did he actually pull this off? I mean, he didn't just wake up one morning and decide to be better. He was smarter than that. He adopted a very specific framework using three ancient but surprisingly practical principles to guide his whole transformation.
These 3 steps, they became his personal roadmap. This wasn't about some one-time fix. It was a commitment to a conscious, daily practice, a whole new way of thinking, acting, and connecting with his colleagues. Let's break them down one by one. His first pillar was all about changing how he thought. It's this principle called Yonasamanasakara, which is basically the practice of wise, systematic reflection. To put it simply, it's the difference between just doing your job and truly understanding your job. And you can see the practical shift right here. It's huge. The old Kun Gang, he would just do what he was told, no questions asked. But now, he started asking bigger questions. How does this task affect other teams? What are we really trying to achieve here? This small mental change had a massive ripple effect. His errors pretty much disappeared, and his work became so much more thoughtful and valuable.
Okay, so he changed how he thought about his work. Next up, he had to tackle how he handled friction with other people. This second pillar is a principle called Khanti, or patient endurance, and it's all about how you carry yourself when things get tough.
And the change in his behavior was like night and day. I mean, where he used to just go silent during a debate, he now made it a point to listen calmly to every single side, especially when he disagreed. He became this stabilizing force in tense moments, a person who wanted to understand, not just to win. And then an amazing thing happened. People started coming to him to help sort things out.
All right, this final pillar is what tied it all together. It's a set of 4 virtues for daily interaction known as the Brahma Viharas. And you might think these sound like principles just for managers or leaders, but Kun Gang proved they are incredibly powerful for everyone, no matter what your job title is.
Just think about the impact of practicing these things. He started actively looking for the good intentions behind what his colleagues did. He offered help freely, without keeping score. He was genuinely happy when they succeeded, with zero jealousy. And he learned to let go of the office drama that he couldn't control. This completely changed the emotional temperature of his relationships. He became someone people genuinely liked and actually wanted to be around.
So, after consistently practicing these 3 pillars, wise reflection, patient endurance, and those 4 virtues, what was the result? What really changed for Kun Gang in the end?
Yeah, sure, his work got better and he made fewer mistakes.
But that wasn't the real story. The real transformation was in his presence. The anxious, quiet guy who used to fade into the background was gone. And in his place stood someone calm, thoughtful, and deeply, deeply reliable.
And it all comes down to this one single observation. Just think about that for a second. The very same man who once avoided conflict at all costs, who was completely overlooked in a crisis, had now become the team's anchor. When things went wrong, everyone turned to him.
You know, in the end, this story is so much more than just a nice little anecdote. It reveals a fundamental truth about where real respect and real influence actually come from.
So here's the crucial point, the big takeaway. Respect isn't something you can demand. It's not something you can win with loud arguments or flashy self-promotion. No, it's earned. It's a natural byproduct of the value you build inside yourself through things like wisdom, patience, and compassion. When you change your inner world, your outer world eventually has no choice but to reflect it.
Which brings us to our final question. A question for you. If you wanted to start a similar journey of your own, which of these pillars would you build first? Would you start with wise reflection, patient endurance, or the 4 virtues? It's a really powerful place to begin. Thanks for digging into this with us here on The Explainer.